give you the option to either decline or not. And so I see that it started. So let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Michaela, right? I use they, them pronouns. And I am the program manager with the Community Wellbeing Initiative. I'm super excited to see you all, to be able to talk about our youth-led RFPs. For anyone who knows anything about me, I really, really love youth-led projects and youth voice and youth work in general. That is something that I've been doing for years, actually, before I even joined the county. And so super, super happy to be talking about this and also just to be able to make this a reality. In terms of my presenting style, just so you all are aware, I definitely welcome questions, feedback, conversation. I really want this to be an accessible process. And I look at it as being kind of informal, even though I am recording. So definitely use that chat, or like if you want to speak, you can also speak out loud. But let me go ahead and dive right in. So just a quick overview of what we'll be going over for today. We'll be talking about Best Starts for Kids and who we are. I'm sure some of you are familiar with who we are, but for folks who are not, I want to make sure to give that context. We'll also go over more about who we are within Best Starts for Kids, since there's a lot that we do and there's a lot of us, which is really fun, but also can be confusing internally and also externally for people. And then we'll dive more into talking about the RFP itself. And then we'll have time for questions. And questions and answers don't have to be at the end. Like, I definitely encourage you all, like, in the middle to ask any questions you may have as well. Because I'm sure that if you have a question, others might also have that same question. Or someone who's reviewing this recording may also have questions. In terms of logistics, what we'll try to do, I encourage you all to use that chat box. It's a great way to engage without having to unmute yourself. So you can add your questions to the chat box. My colleague, Erin, will be handling the chat box. So you'll see a lot of posts coming from her and just responses. You can also always email me as well, because if you're anything like me, maybe you don't have a question in that moment, but like later on, you're like, wait a second, I actually don't like this thing. So you are welcome to message me after as well. And so I encourage you all to definitely ask a lot of questions because I welcome them. It's a great chance for us to learn from one another. And also right now is a perfect time for questions, since the RFP has not yet been released. So that means that I can share a little bit more information now than I will be able to in a couple of weeks. So I want to make sure that I'm a resource for everyone. With that, are there any questions just around anything I should note before we dive into discussing Best Starts for Kids and who we are? Perfect. So I will go ahead and move on. Also, just so folks are aware, I do have a cat. Her name is Octavia, and she likes to sometimes show up to my meetings. So do not be surprised if you see a cat that's kind of hopping past the camera, though she might be a little more distracted today since my partner is actually is at home today. Yes, but just wanted to give you all that awareness, because sometimes you might see like a cat tail or something swinging. So diving into who we are, Best Starts for Kids. So our overall vision is happy, healthy, safe, and thriving. So what we really want to see is babies that are born healthy, kids that are thriving, young people who are growing up to be happy, healthy, and successful adults, which I really love that this is our focus. In addition, our mission, building on that, really is focused on strengthening families in our communities, really so that we can support babies and children and young adults as well. This particular RFP, which we'll go into a little bit more, is more focused on the happy, healthy adults and young adults, but also on communities as well. But this is just our overall mission and our vision. So we're really strength-based. We're really focused on supporting community and meeting them where they're at. In addition, we really are equity focused, which we'll get into talking about and how it relates to this RFP. So we do have the Children Youth Advisory Board, which is our oversight board. It's how we stay accountable and really connected to community. And so what we acknowledge in terms of equity is that it may be an ardent journey. It might be a little difficult. It might make us feel a little uncomfortable. It can be disruptive, but equity is still fundamental to making sure that we really are building the communities that we want to see. This is why we choose to focus on some of the populations and groups that we really are working with, because we want to make sure we're prioritizing people who often do not have access to these sort of resources. Yeah, but going further into just some of our principles and things that we really believe, and I think what really sets us apart from a lot of different initiatives within government and within our region and country generally, is that we're really focused on promotion and prevention and that early intervention piece, as well as policies and systems change, which I will say as a social worker, I love that. As someone who's worked on the deep end side of intervention and have seen what happens when we don't invest early on in our communities, it can be really, really sad. And so to have this initiative that is very much focused on asking these questions, like what are the good things that we want for our children? Like, how do we prioritize promotion and then invest early when people are still babies, when they're still young children, when they're still youth who need that support? Every child is born full of possibilities and deserving of good things. And I will say, I really do believe that firmly in my personal life as well. We also recognize that children and young adults really need those prevention efforts to support them in establishing a healthy foundation for their lives. So we talk a lot about that early intervention, that early promotion and prevention. But in order to sustain those gains that we're doing early on in a young person's life, we also really want to make sure we're supporting children and young people as well. And so for us, young people include up to age 24, which for people who work in the youth field, that is not surprising. For anyone outside of the field, they may be a little surprised that we go up that high, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at the science behind it. We also work to change systems and policies. So we really are trying to figure out how can we use this strength-based approach? How can we meet people where they're at? Whether it's directly in community itself or within policy and systems change. Furthermore, going into Best Starts for Kids, we are now in BSK 2.0, which is super exciting. And so for anyone familiar with BSK 1.0, you may notice that there's a lot more funding that's coming out and there are a lot more strategies. We really are trying to be responsive to community need. And so we've been able to expand and grow thanks to voters reapproving us in the levy last year and really choosing to prioritize their communities. And so it's a 6-year property tax that is funding this work. The average cost is roughly around $114 for a $600,000 home. But since this is a large county and very populous, that actually equals a very large dollar amount, even if it's not individually. So our investment amounts for this levy, which is going through this year, through 2027. We are in that sustain the gain section, that 5 through 24. So focusing on young people and their well-being. But this is just some of what we're doing. There's a lot of new sections in here, like childcare, which we know is important, especially for anyone who has small children and has seen childcare costs. It makes sense why we have this added on. We also have added in data and evaluation support and capital projects and other things, including capacity building and TA support, which I will talk more about later on and how that relates to this RFP. But we're doing a lot of work. And so I imagine for anyone doing community work, you probably have run into someone from BSK at some point, since there's a lot of us and we're really spread out and really trying to just generally support our communities. But that's just a little bit about who Best Starts for Kids is, who we are. But going more into the weeds of it, we are a part of Best Starts for Kids, but we are the Community Wellbeing Initiative. And I think what's unique about us is that we really got our starts out of the COVID-19 response. So though we are new to BSK 2.0, we've actually been around since 2020. And I love our starts, honestly, in the way that we responded. And so what we recognized early on during the pandemic, and it was, I was not the person who started CWI, I'll be very clear in that. In 2020, I was actually working at a CBO at the time. But when CWI, the Community Wellbeing Initiative, was getting started, we recognized that there was a lot of trauma that our communities were experiencing, and there was a lot that we could do to really start to intervene early and to really prevent and promote well-being. And so this work was birthed out of that response. And so what we really focus on is holistic approaches. So building community capacity to share resources and deliver these culturally relevant programming on emotional health and well-being. We really want to reduce that stigma associated with mental health topics because we know that there is nothing to be ashamed of in responding to stress in a way that is normal for people. It is not unusual to see people having a stress response due to just what we've experienced over the past couple of years. And so we are working to really reinforce that compassion, that connection, that care in our communities. And so we recognize that emotional health is really grounded in holistic individual and community health and just in equitable systems and structures. And so we do this through reducing stigma, reinforcing that compassion that we mentioned, and partnering with community and convening stakeholders as well. And so some of you may have heard of some of the work that we're doing in community. Like an example would be the South King Emotional Wellness League, where we're able to provide free virtual mental health supports to community, which I definitely encourage folks, if you have any questions around that, to definitely reach out to me. And we're doing other things as well. But basically just really trying to figure out how do we support community. So we are the folks in BSK who are very, very much focused and embedded in addressing mental health and well-being for community. Are there any questions about this before I get into actually discussing the RFP? And I recognize this is very broad, general overview, so I definitely encourage folks to, if you're someone like me who likes to know everything and anything, there are some resources online just about what BSK is up to and all of the work that we're doing overall. And there's more details too about community well-being and how we fit into the overall picture. But outside of that, this particular RFP, I think the beauty of it is that it is specifically focused on young people. And I believe this may be the first time that we've seen BSK explicitly say that we want young people to apply directly to funding. It is very innovative. It does not mean that CBOs will not be involved in this project, but we really want to make sure that we're really, when we say youth leadership, that we truly mean youth leadership for this particular project. And so the age range is 14 to 24. We're very intentional about that because you recognize that typically we'll see like 16 to 24 for youth focused projects, but there are 14 to 15-year-olds are also in high school. And they also really love engaging in these sort of projects. And so we wanted to make sure that this opportunity is open to them. And so we are encouraging young people to apply directly. If you are a CBO who is interested in this project, one way that you can be involved is by fiscally sponsoring a young person. We really are looking for organizations that we know are supportive of young people, organizations that have experience supporting youth-led projects to really help young people while holding these funds and leading these projects. So the way this will look will be the young person will apply for the funds and either they can identify their fiscal sponsor in their application or they can identify their fiscal sponsor afterwards if they are chosen for this award. And we're setting it up in this way because we recognize that some young people may already have these amazing connections to organizations. They may already be part of youth programs and want to add on this project to whatever it is they're doing with that org. So they already have that org. But there might be some young people out there who are not connected to an organization who still want to apply for this. And so we want to help connect them to a fiscal sponsor of their choice. They will have the option to not have a fiscal sponsor. However, I highly recommend that they do. Partly because even though the dollar amount for this project seems particularly small, which we'll talk about more, it can be a lot if someone was to take this on individually. It could potentially impact their tax situation or their finances or all sorts of things. So we're prioritizing young people. We also are hoping to have amazing fiscal sponsor organizations that will support these young people in these projects. And we really, really want to prioritize young people from historically marginalized communities. This project, the first time around, was created specifically for BIPOC young people. And we want to continue to center that particular population in addition to others like the LGBTQ community And our rationale behind that, which we'll go into more detail in the actual RFP itself, is just due to data and the numbers that we're seeing in terms of which populations are being the most impacted by some of the mental health numbers that we've been seeing. We also want young people from underserved areas of the county to apply. So that could be South King County, it could be rural areas, but really thinking, who are we not reaching? Who are the young people who would be able to create amazing impact if they were able to access these funds? So this is who we're looking at. It's very untraditional, so I'm going to pause just to see what questions folks may have, because I know we have a lot of CBOs on this call, but that does not mean that you all cannot be involved. In fact, we welcome CBO involvement. It just looks a lot different than what it typically would for these sort of things. And it's also okay if you want to save your questions until the end as well. Yes, but this is just who the RFP is for. Yeah, so moving into this next slide, the Youth Healing Project is an interesting project because it is actually not new. Some folks may recognize the name or may have seen it around before and are kind of wondering like, wait, when did this become a BSK project? And the answer is it's actually a collaborative project. It's collaborative funding. So the Youth Healing Project actually got its start similar to the Community Wellbeing Initiative out of COVID-19 in 2020. It came out of a survey that was done by the Community Center for Education Results, Reconnect Opportunity. I also remember being involved in that survey when I was working at a small nonprofit called SOAR at the time. And what that survey was led by young people who were able to survey their peers. They were able to share feedback. And I think what was amazing about that particular survey in question is that it focused on opportunity youth. So young people who were more likely to be pushed out of school or work, young people who are more likely to be marginalized. So we were hearing from the young people who were most impacted by COVID at the time. And what they found from that survey was that there was a need for mental health supports, but not just traditional mental health supports, but mental health projects, solutions coming directly from young people for young people. I think what's beautiful about that particular survey is that instead of just looking at it and kind of sitting it to the side and saying, I wonder what we can do next, CCER, Reconnect Opportunity, and Cities Rise, 3 separate orgs all came together and decided, let's create a funding opportunity for young people. Let's have young people lead this and tell us what kind of funds they would like to see. And so that's exactly what they did in 2021. And so this first round of the Youth Healing Project at that time supported CBOs, so community-based organizations, and also young people. And this time around, we'll just be focusing directly on the young people. And so we won't be funding CBOs primarily, we'll be funding young people. And the rationale behind that is just based off the feedback that we received and overall learning that the young people really want to see more investment in youth-led projects. But this is just some of the background. So this is technically Youth Healing Project 2.0. And so this first round of funding that came out of the Youth Healing Project back in 2021 was actually led by CCER, the Community Center for Education Results. They were the ones who accepted the applications, released the funding. But this time around will be the main ones leading the funding. But we were able to become involved in this project in the fall of 2021. We added more funds. And so we're glad to be a collaborator, to be a co-conspirator, to really be supporting this project, because I think it's amazing. And I definitely want to keep seeing it show up year after year in different iterations and forms. So what sets this funding opportunity apart is that it is a little more hands-on from our side. It is not us just giving funds to community and then saying, good luck, I hope you're able to figure it out. We really are building in a lot of supports, because we know that in order to see young people succeed in their leadership, we also have to be able to support them and to not assume that youth leadership looks like handing young people funds and not helping them in any kind of way. So young people who receive this funding will be supported not only by their fiscal sponsor organization, they also will be part of a cohort that will be convened by Cities Rise, which is a global youth-led and focused mental health network. So these young people will be connected to a larger network of young leaders across the globe. Cities Rise has youth leadership projects in Kenya, in South America, in other parts of the US, all over really. And so the young folks will be able to get connected to that larger network of young people who are really advocating around mental health and well-being. Additionally, they will get mentorship as well and regular check-ins to be able to connect with one another around their projects and to learn from one another. And they'll get evaluation support. So if they need to figure out like, how could I tell if my project is actually working well? How do I know if I'm helping others in my community? They'll get that chance to really be able to learn and to storytell and to really gather information and learn. And so they'll get that evaluation support from us, but also from the Community Center for Education Results, which is super exciting. Additionally, we also have capacity building consultants offer Do Best Starts for Kids. And so those capacity building consultants will be able to support the young people in building their budgets and just learning how to run and manage a project. So overall, this is an amazing leadership opportunity for the young people who are running these projects in addition to their communities as well. So I'm very, very excited just to see this model that we're using. So young people are not only receiving funds, they also are receiving support from us and also from our partners, Reconnect Opportunity, Cities Rise, and CCER. So that's a lot of information there, a lot of moving pieces, which we'll definitely go into more detail about in the RFP and also in our information sessions that we'll host around this particular funding opportunity. But are there any questions, like any thoughts people have about any of this? And that's also okay. So in terms of where CBOs fit, and like why, like if you're asking yourself this, no, go ahead and go. I think I heard someone unmute themselves.
Yeah, I don't think it was much of a question, but more of like could we follow up afterwards on this? But also I wanted to state that I'm on my way to an appointment that's at 1:50, so I might have to head out a little early.
Yeah, no worries. And we'll be recording it. I'm hoping that we probably should be done with most of the important information by 1:50. So thank you for letting us know that. Yes. So yeah, definitely like feel free to post your question in the chat too. Yes, I see someone else just unmuted themselves as well and is raising their hand. Go for it.
So, excuse me, how would a CBO come alongside a young person just to support them? How would you like put your name in there for a young person to be able to reach out to you and say that they need, you know what I mean, your support?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I know that's probably a question I'm sure a lot of people have. So the way that we're looking at it, and we're trying not to be too hands-on while also trying to be somewhat hands-on, which is a delicate balance. We want to do some sort of meet and greet. And so for CBOs that are interested, what I would say is definitely reach out to us. I also will be doing some like kind of like, I don't want to say a landscape assessment, but I will be asking CBOs that are interested just to let us know so we could put you on a list. You also can come to an information session and let young people know like, hey, I'm a CBO that wants to support you. And then what we can do is connect you directly to a young person who does need that support. I also encourage CBOs, if you're already working directly with young people, to share this opportunity with them and have the young person apply for these funds. Because that's also a great way to just be able to support them. And that's actually something that was done in 1.0. There were young people who were already connected to organizations, applied for the funds, and that CBO was able to support them through the process throughout their entire project. And those are the projects that we heard that did the best, honestly, because they had that support.
Thank you. So will you be sharing information on how to contact you at the end, correct?
Yeah, and I know my email's in the chat, but I definitely would say to reach out to me directly so that you can share that information. But yes, and I'll also send out an email to everyone who signed up for this, just to say, like, if you're interested in being a direct support for a young person and being a fiscal sponsor, let us know now. We'll add you to that list and invite you to the information session too, so you can connect with the young person.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I see there's another
And
person.
I'm from Praise Hallelujah, so I'll just put it out there right now. I'm interested. Okay.
That's really
Thank you.
exciting. Yeah,
Thank you. Sure.
So I just want to say, it's not a question, but it's just, I wanted to say that we are at the beginning stages of being a fiscal sponsor. I am with the organization called BRAVE, which stands for Building Resilience, Awareness, and Variations of Excellence. And Seattle, the city of Seattle, the deal department actually just put out a RFP for young people, and I had young people that may have been interested, and it was a really cool experience to see them apply for the grant. They even had a cool experience where you could either write the grant or you could make a video, but you had to answer all the questions. And so just supporting them around that, supporting them applying for it, giving them the RFP and things like that. And like the young person just asked for the organization's W-9, but it's it's going to be really interesting to see the young people actually lead and be beside them. So I just want to say I'm at the beginning stages of this, and it is awesome to see the young people to be, have the privilege to witness firsthand the young people actually apply and have their grand ideas. But like you mentioned, they do need the support. They need someone to support them and, in order just to be, successful. And so I think that this is an amazing opportunity for young people to apply to.
Yes, thank you for that. I saw some like hand claps and like smiles. Yeah, I'm absolutely excited for this. And I'm also kind of like, where was this opportunity when I was young? But that's okay. That's okay. That's why we're creating it now for this particular generation, so that they have these opportunities. And so, yeah, so one other bit on fiscal sponsorship. If your organization has a fiscal sponsor fee, that is totally okay. We made sure to build that in so that is something that is considered as well. And so that is also a thing, because I know that does help a little bit to be able to address that particular lift, because I know that it's not easy. So how does this opportunity overall connect to Best Starts for Kids as a whole? Well, this project is located underneath the Community Wellbeing Initiative, which is us, and community well-being is located underneath the Liberation and Healing Strategy, which some of you may be familiar with, Liberation and Healing from Systemic Racism. We are sibling strategies and located generally within that Liberation and Healing section of Best Starts for Kids. And overall, we are all part of that Sustain to Gain 5 to 24 work. We all are focused on that prevention and promotion strategy I mentioned earlier, and are really trying to center young people in this work, which is huge. So very much strength-based, very much in line with BSK. And so overall goals of this funding is, of course, increasing youth leadership and empowerment, which some of you touched on when you were sharing out, which thank you so much for that. But also we are focused on improving youth well-being. And also increasing knowledge of healthy coping strategies. And there's more to it, which we can go over in the RFP when you're actually looking at it. But this is just general overview of what this particular project is, how it's connected to Best Starts for Kids, all of those different moving pieces. So here's the information that I'm sure folks want to know. So something to be aware of, a community well-being. We are very small in comparison to our siblings. We do not have the budgets they have since we're new to this work and we're meant to collaborate with other entities. This dollar amount up here is tentative. It might increase just due to conversations we're having with our collaborators around how do we increase this pot of money. And so the application due date will also maybe shift. This is a mini RFP, and so it can be rolling. It does not have to be stagnant. We also are still trying to figure out turnaround time and just general editing and going back and forth. So you might find that this RFP gets released or is due sooner or even later. But definitely keep an eye on our funding calendar because we'll make sure to keep all of that up to date. The contract period will definitely stay the same though. It will be from the beginning of the school year through the end of the school year. And we are doing this because of feedback from the first time we did this particular project. We learned that I think they had only like a few months to work on their projects and a lot of the young people felt rushed. And so the feedback that we really received was, let's lengthen this time period. The funding amount, while it looks small for CBOs, I will say the first time we did the Youth project, the youth awards were around $3,000 or $5,000, so they were smaller than what it is now. We also are doing $9,999 intentionally because as long as we are below that $10,000 threshold, it makes the application process so much more smooth and easier for young people to access. You also do not have to worry about having an actual full contract, which for anyone who is familiar with BSK contracts, they can be a lot. They can be a little tedious. And we didn't want people to have to go through that experience. So instead, you'll have letter agreements because these are mini grants basically and a little smaller than the average one. And so we're anticipating that we can fund 10 young people, but if our partner is able to get back to us in time and say, actually, you know what, we have extra dollars, it might be that we fund more than 10 young people, which would be amazing to see the cohort grow. But these are just some of the fast facts around the funding and what it looks like. So just know that these things are not set in stone because the RFP has not been released yet. It is still in development, but will be released soon. Yes. So moving to this next slide, this is the timeline that goes into more detail. So once again, this is when it's going to be released, is maybe around July 18th. That date is not set in stone, but it will be sometime in July. We will have our online information sessions. We'll have 2 of them. The first one will just be a general overview of this RFP. So it'll be similar to what we're doing now, but more depth, more detail around just different things. And then we'll have another one on August 3rd. And the August 3rd one is definitely one I would say to tune into because this is where we'll be having fiscal sponsors and young people present. We'll have young people in groups from the previous Youth Healing Projects RFP come in and share their experiences and what they learned for participating in this project. We'll share examples of good fiscal sponsorship and what it could look like. It'll be really storytelling oriented, but also it'll be a good chance for fiscal sponsors to connect with young people. And to say, hey, if you're looking for a fiscal sponsor, like I'm really interested in supporting. So that August 3rd date will be really good. It'll be a great opportunity just to connect and learn. We will not be doing any in-person info sessions, but we will have technical assistance. And our technical assistance will be very, very helpful for helping the young people. And so we're going to make sure that the TA providers are trained on how to support the young people so that they're aware of what this is. And they'll be able to really just sit down with people and say, here's how to use this thing called Zoom Grants because Zoom Grants is not friendly. Or here's how to read through this particular proposal or how to answer these questions. So there'll be hands-on support in terms of applying for the RFP. And so it'll be due in August, though you may find that date will shift. The RFP review county-run processes, and that it'll be youth-led, which I am so excited about. It's going to be led by young people. Young people will be the ones picking out the projects, and will be the main ones rating it. So the final oversight will come from community and not from county leadership like it typically does. And we're doing that because we really want to make sure that this is a community-oriented and youth-led process. And so then folks should know if they receive the funds in September, just in time for the start of the school year. So that is a lot of information. Let me pause, just see if there are any questions. You can all toss it in the chat or say it out loud if you need to. Okay, I will go ahead and move to the next slide. And I welcome like questions to the end as well too, since I know that we're starting to get close to the end. So our funding priorities, we really want to make sure that we're focusing on mental health and well-being, connection, and support for young people. An example project from the first time around when we did this funding, some young people were able to have kickball games. And that doesn't sound like it would be well-being, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So we really are flexible. We've seen healing circles. We've seen projects where they went to farms. We saw someone do a documentary like talking about mental health for East African youth, and they just recorded that and were able to share that. There were some really, really amazing projects, really, really cool things that people came up with. And so we prioritize those creative ideas that center young people and are authentic to community. And we want to make sure that young people are being empowered as leaders because they are. So funding is also flexible. It can be used however, it could be stipends, it could be staffing, incentives, tech support, events, it could be anything, as long as it is tied to a particular project itself. But we are not going to say that you have to invoice and detail every single penny because you know that that's a lot to expect from folks. And so we really want to make sure it's flexible. What we're focused on is the outcomes. As long as you're able to do your project in whatever way, then that is fine. And I want to emphasize this as someone who used to be a program manager in nonprofits. And so I know what it is like when the grant process or contract process is too much. I do not want to be that person because that would not be helpful. And I recognize that. So in terms of the data and evaluation, we will have young people building a measurement and evaluation plan with our BSK evaluation staff, as well as CCR. CCR is amazing for anyone who knows in terms of doing like broad storytelling and really putting things together. So we're really excited to have them as a collaborator and supporting in that way. And so I think it's important to note that we're having people build this out, because we're not going to do something like have young people entering data into a database that is hard to access. I have been there and had to document data in that way, and I have a master's degree and I still struggled. So there is no way I would do that to young folks. Instead, we'll really be trying to be authentic while simultaneously really mentoring and supporting young people and learning about how to evaluate things effectively. So we might find that a young person wants to do storytelling or record things, that maybe they want to do Instagram surveys, like whatever it looks like, as long as they're coming up with something that makes sense for them so they can understand like, this is how I could tell if my project is unfolding well. Additionally, young people will have to make sure that their project outcomes are of course connected to the overall goals of this utility project. And for more information about that, you all can look at the RFP in the outcomes section, which that is released, because there will be more information about like things that we're generally looking for. And we made sure to keep it very broad. All of it is just generally increased well-being, which can look like a lot of different things. So I wouldn't worry too much. We're really trying to make sure this is open, accessible, and flexible for folks. So in terms of the review panel, which I am so excited about, since I was just talking about my coworkers and collaborators about what we're going to be doing. This RFP review panel will be led by young people and people who are youth adjacent. So it will not be a room full of like county administrators who are disconnected from community. No, it will be young people from the community leading this. So I encourage you all to carefully review that rating criteria that we're going to have. It's going to be very like easy to follow. We're not asking for like these overly detailed budgets or anything like that. We just want to make sure that these projects are aligned with supporting young people and that they're aligned with youth voice and youth leadership. And so all proposals that are reviewed will go through this review process. Additionally, for anyone who wants to know like what feedback they got, we are a public entity, which means that all of your scores, you can see that. You are always welcome to reach out if you're like curious about why we made a decision that we made on your proposal, because we want to make sure we're being fully transparent. So really putting those checks and balances in place. So just tips, make sure to read the instructions. If that's like too much, like if the document is a lot, that is also okay. Because I know that like not all of us, some of us have disabilities, some of us have different needs. So it is okay to ask for help or to ask clarifying questions. We have technical assistance and we'll also have 2 info sessions. So we're really trying to make sure that we're supporting people and meeting them where they're at. We're also even recording this, which is another way to access information for folks. And be creative. Like we want innovative, we want flexible, fun projects. We want it to be authentic. It doesn't have to be a serious, sad project that is weighted down with data. It can be really fun things. Like if you all are like, we actually are putting together a self-care group where we're doing spa days. I would think that would be wonderful. I know I personally love the spa. It makes me feel better mentally after I go there. So it's whatever you all could think of that feels like it ties into well-being. And we encourage you to apply individually, or you can apply as teams. If you're like, actually, me and my friends want to work on this project together around a video game league, go for it, honestly. I welcome it. I think it's great. And I brought up video games for a reason. There actually have been some like video game therapeutic methods that are out there. That's a whole thing. I've heard of D&D also being a whole entire thing that people do as well. Like the sky is the limit on these particular projects. And so budget tips. Just make sure like to state how much funding you need. If you're like, I actually don't need that full $9,000, actually I only need $4,000, then apply for that. That's okay. Budget should be developed for the length of the contract. And please be sure to read the instructions, but that budget section is not super thorough because we know this is a small amount of money. And also that it's a mini RFP, and also it's for young people. So we are not saying like, if you said that you're going to spend this money XYZ way, you have to stay married to that. Like we know that things change, that nothing is set in stone ever. And so that is totally fine. So we'll have our TA assistants as well. You can all reach out to them. They'll be able to help you in determining like, is this a good fit? They are not grant writers, but they are really helpful in terms of like editing and reviewing budgets and providing guidance. They're really there as supports, as allies. And they usually respond within 48 hours. So I would say when you're reaching out to a TA consultant, just choose one person, wait a couple of days, they don't respond, then you can go ahead and reach out to another person, or troubleshoot with me if you need to. But we do have these TA supports that are there that are built in. Definitely utilize them. They're there as a resource for community. And so just information generally, our next info session will be July 29th. Once again, that date is not necessarily set in stone. It might shift, and that is okay if that does happen. You can always email questions to me. My email is in the chat. And you can also reach out to the TA assistance providers as well. And I definitely encourage you all, because I know sometimes I'm shy and don't want to reach out for help. Please do. I promise it is okay. They are very friendly. They want people to reach out. I want people to reach out. It makes me really excited to see people interested in projects and whatever information that you don't have, like, I don't consider it to be an issue. Like, I know that sometimes things get missed. Sometimes things are explained in a way that doesn't make sense. Not all of us are neurotypical. Some of us need support. And there's nothing wrong with that. And also be sure to use that checklist as well, because I don't want anyone to forget something tiny that would disqualify them, because that make me really, really sad. If I saw like this amazing proposal, but maybe you forgot one section. So please be sure to use that checklist so that you don't forget anything, because I have been known to do that. And I know other people who sometimes forget tiny little things. So just be sure to make sure that you're fully filling out all of the questions in all the sections. So this is just all the information. I know it's a lot. So I'm going to pause just to see what questions are coming up, like what sections I need to go back and rewind to for folks to look at. Yeah, so that questions, thoughts, concerns. Yeah.
Can I ask a question specific to my organization, or is that best emailed to you?
Oh, no, you can definitely go for that if you want.
Okay, we have a teen group that meets quarterly, and they youth-led, and they develop the activities. So could we apply, like if they came up the project, I could apply for them, and then they could use the funds to like fund their quarterly teen leadership things. It could be like like youth activities like you talked about, and we would use it to implement like maybe some incentives to get more youth there, things like that. Supplies, if they came up with like the activity was going to be a big kickball night with training on, or something like that. I don't know what they'll come up with, but So would I go through our organization, fund their leadership activities? Or would you want the
Yeah.
youth themselves to apply?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I would say having the young people apply directly would be the best option, just so that we can make sure that the projects really are being led by the young folks, which I know it is very, very hard to gather young people together and say, okay, now let's apply for this RFP. Because I've been there, and it can sometimes feel a little bit like herding cats, but definitely having the young people apply. And if you like have any questions, or if you're trying to figure out how to coordinate all of that, definitely reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer any questions or to even give any suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, do we have any other questions that are coming up? And so I would say you can all also email me as well, because I'm sure more things will come up. We also be having some information sessions too. But I just want to say thank you all for the questions, for being here, for being present. If you want to learn more about just our funding opportunities, you can scan this to stay up to date. I definitely encourage you all to subscribe to our blog, because that is where we release updates. We also make sure to send out this recording as well for folks so that they're able to access that and to look at this later. Additionally, if you all are interested in youth-led projects, we will be having another session in 8 minutes. So definitely stay tuned for that one. But thank you all so much for joining. So let me go ahead and stop this recording really quickly.